Stick around.
And Nikola Tesla, in the early 1900s as well, he predicted that we would all have a device that would fit into your pocket that could communicate with other devices using radio waves. Here we are now sitting only 2 years since OpenAI first made their first ChatGPT even vaguely available. Remember, it was the fastest growing app at the time, wasn't it?
I remember Saturday morning that I discovered ChatGPT. I did a bit of research and suggests that up to 30% of working hours could be lost by 2030.
Now, I think that starts to get a bit scary, but as soon as it's got the ability to do stuff rather than just give you some text or voice output, then where does it go?
Come with me if you want to live.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the SME Growth Podcast from Wellmeadow. And here at Wellmeadow, we're helping companies all the time with their growth plans, sometimes and more often than not, based on some expertise that we have around HubSpot and CRMs. So we've got Richard in the studio again, joining me. Hello again.
Hello.
Now, get me right this week. Last week I cocked it up, got the wrong number. Episode 98.
This is episode number 98.
This is episode 98. I'm not going to go on again about what comes next, but episode 98. So last week we did episode 97 was business model canvas, and we talked all about that pretty neat little tool that we've used at various companies, and people can dial into that and find out all about value propositions and all that sort of thing. We had a double build. No, we didn't. The week before that was episode 96, personalisation. How much do you personalise your business services and all that sort of thing, and the buyer journey.
Yep.
Then before that we had the double bill, episodes 94 and 95. 2 hours of comedy gold from Rod Plummer, telling us all about his career to date and how he built his company and some other funny and less so funny stories on the way. And then before that we had one on proposals. So we've had quite a run of some crackers really. And some of the figures we're getting on YouTube are eye-watering at the moment. So thank you everybody for watching on all the various channels, including Spotify and Apple Podcasts, but also increasingly on YouTube for the shorts, on Instagram, on LinkedIn, on Facebook, on Twitter, and everywhere else.
As Arnie would say, stick around. You realise that
you're
now, having mentioned,
it's in your head.
Having mentioned Terminator and Arnold Schwarzenegger in the opening,
right?
This is now going to be very hard for me.
Well, I'm going to go a little bit more classical for my intro to this. So we're going to try and this episode come up with a few predictions about what might the world of work be like this time next year, December 2025. And if you think about it, go back in time, other people have had a go at this, and there's been some notable successes. So Leonardo da Vinci did quite well in predicting the helicopter, about 5 centuries too early, but got there. Jules Verne wrote a book in 1865 called From Earth to the Moon, where he not only predicted space travel with rockets, but even predicted the exact location of where the rockets would take off from in Florida. Incredible, isn't it? 102 years.
Did he predict the moon's made of cheese?
Well,
is that one of his?
I don't think that was one of his.
Okay.
No, I don't think the cheese thing. Arthur C. Clarke predicted geostationary satellites in 1945, before we'd even got satellites. H.G. Wells predicted bioweapons and laser warfare in the early 1900s. And Nikola Tesla, in the early 1900s as well, he predicted that we would all have a device that would fit into your pocket that could communicate with other devices using radio waves.
Wow.
120 years ago. Incredible, isn't it?
It's kind of nuts, isn't it, when you take it for granted that it's all so... We stand on the shoulders of giants, don't we, really?
It's barely been 100 years we've had the telephone at all. It's just incredible. And there's this whole theory about the fact that progress is exponential. It's perhaps always been exponential. And there's a phrase about exponential growth that when you look backwards, it always looks straight. And when you look forward, it looks vertical. And I think that's universally true of the way exponential graphs work. And there was a great book, I think I've mentioned it before, called Ray Kurzweil, called The Point of Singularity. Yeah. And he talks about the progress that humans have made century to century. And that a whole century's worth of progress is equivalent to the first 20 years of the next century's worth of progress.
Right.
And of course, that's an exponential rule, isn't it? Because you don't have the next 20 years in 2 years and all that sort of thing. So it all goes crazy, crazy vertical. So here we are now sitting only 2 years since OpenAI first made their first ChatGPT even vaguely available. Remember, it was the fastest growing app at the time, wasn't it?
I remember Saturday morning that I discovered ChatGPT.
And you were lost in this world of, oh wow, how did that happen? So here we are, only 2 years on from when that came out, and there's been so much progress. You were talking, I think it was a couple of weeks ago, about that HeyGen example you'd done. We'd recorded you speaking to the camera, and it then
done that now.
It just created a video of you saying all sorts of other words that you'd never said.
Yeah,
we've had one before where we've used it to get us to talk other languages. We've created images with it. We use it almost daily in our work to come up with brainstorming ideas as a co-pilot for all sorts of different tasks, cleansing data.
Well, it's becoming ubiquitous almost. I mean, kids use it as like tutors for their homework.
And there was an article the other day about someone using it for their kid as a maths tutor, and it adapted the kind of discussion directly to their ability and didn't get impatient, all this sort of thing. So it throws up all sorts of questions about the future of teaching, the future of anything that's knowledge-based, coding. You know, they say that 40% of code on GitHub now, which if you don't know is the main repository in the world for where people put their code, 40% of it is AI generated. Crazy. And I've been doing some work with clients recently in developing code for them, and I'm no coder, but ChatGPT is, or Perplexity as we use it as well. And it can produce workable code pretty darn quick. So there's so much going on already. If you just now think, okay, cast your mind 1 year forward, how crazy could it be? So go on. You ever go first? Think of something that's happening today that you can imagine a year's time is possible.
It's quite a short time frame, isn't it? But
that's exponential, right?
So, well, true.
In 2 years, we've gone from not having AI in our pockets to using it every day at work.
So, I did a bit of research, and some McKinsey research suggests that up to 30% of working hours could be lost by 2030 due to generative AI. So maybe not 30% of hours. What would that be? 5 years away. So let's say maybe 5% of time saved.
Yeah,
I mean, that's a lot.
Said that, it is a lot, but at the same time, in some industries, it's not enough. Surely the pace of change is so fast. 2030, I mean, for a start, that's after Skynet have wiped us all out. So
that's true.
So we
must be wrong then.
Doesn't really matter then, does it? But there must be some industries where that 30% could be 50%. I mean, already, I think there's a lot of graphic designers out of work because where they were once called upon to produce that, once image that's needed isn't anymore. So as an average, maybe.
My prediction then for 2025, I think and I'll play off my HeyGen experience here because that's something that's quite fresh in my mind.
Yep.
I think the rise of the digital twin in the workplace will start to happen in 2025 because the technology is there now where it wasn't a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
It's pretty good. You can still see that it's AI generated, but it's kind of around the edges.
Yeah.
I think it will become a time saver for people for doing maybe sales outreach or doing more administrative things, particularly if you train your own GPT, etc. I do think it's going to come with some pretty strong ethical, possibly even legal
without
implications.
Doubt, the fraud potential for it is huge. We're going to have to think again about how we know whether we trust what we're seeing.
Well, because my original idea was to use it for discovery calls, but then I thought, well, I don't know what I'm saying.
No.
I mean, my digital twin, I don't know what it said.
No.
So you've got to be then quite careful. But I think, as we were talking about this the other day, as we get more familiar with GPTs, as it gets better, you trust it more.
Until it goes rogue.
Maybe it's just a ruse.
Yeah.
But I think we'll see more of that digital twins.
You think they'll be not quite commonplace, but they'll be available and being used in some useful ways?
Yeah, and I think maybe even practical. Maybe it's just the online physical representation of an agent doing something for you. So it could be me booking a restaurant somewhere, or it could be that type of thing. But it's just you as a person doing it, personalising the interface. It's almost an interface tool. Yep. But I think that's going to become something.
Okay, I think there's. I'm going to focus to start my first one on something around communication. I think there's going to be so much that can augment our ability to communicate better than we do now by giving us more information at the moment than it actually needed. How many times do you wish in a conversation that you could recall facts or maybe even you don't know what you don't know, and being
Yeah.
prompted on something can really enhance a conversation. But also this really clunky thing that we're all doing now as we move more to remote working and we're talking to Zoom and Teams screens and that sort of thing. It's still a bit artificial and people prefer the face-to-face. I think within a year, someone will have cracked how to get that more immersive experience without having to wear a headset. I think there'll be something around how online meetings work, and in such a way that it's listening to what's being said and looking up the private GPT and your knowledge base and all the stuff that it can possibly know about that subject or this conversation or whatever, and bring that to your conscience in the moment. So you'll be able to say, oh, hang on a minute, didn't you say 75 days ago that this, or someone once mentioned to me this, that, or the other, or there was something in the news the other day, or whatever it may be. But whatever the discussion point is, I think that equivalent of the co-pilot sat next to you saying, don't forget this, don't forget that, and what about that? Just at the right moment so that your conversation is enhanced.
Will that be like Minority Report, where he's just got all that data and he's just bringing it in? And I don't need that bit. Swipe.
But I think even the swipey bit will be getting done for you.
Right, okay.
I think that the whole concept of where this co-pilot thing is going to go, and as Microsoft say, it's a co-pilot, not an autopilot. It won't do it for you, but it's going to augment the human's ability, because we're very bad at remembering things, aren't we? But we're very good at decision making and pattern matching. So actually, if you take away the bit that we're bad at, I mean, how many people remember a phone number anymore? We don't need to, right? That's been solved. But that took ages. And now imagine if, even in this, like earlier when you were trying to recall, a dad joke or a reference to some cultural thing, that it's just there instantly. And it'll be served up somehow. Maybe our phone is sat there listening and it's just firing up sort of relevant facts. So I think something around comms, I think.
So you'd have total recall.
You would have total recall. Are you playing some sort of
classic
bingo game? Get as many film names. So that's my first bet. I reckon something that's going to super enhance communication with some sort of co-pilot.
Well, I see your comms, and I will raise you a multilingual comms.
Oh, Babelfish.
I think we're going back to Babel. And I think we are going to see the rise in being able to natively understand. I mean, you can already sort of see that with ChatGPT.
It's almost there, isn't it? That's not a year away, I think.
Immediate translation.
There's a bit of interface tech that's probably got to get sorted, but the background tech.
Once that's nailed, you'll be able to, a bit like Star Trek, isn't it, with the universal translator?
Yeah.
For those, apparently I heard about that. Someone told me about it.
You're right.
So you could speak Klingon or French or German.
I've been doing Klingon once before.
So
I'm sure I've seen a demo of that.
That was High Valerian.
High Valerian.
Come on.
Mixing up my Klingons with my High Valerians. Okay, so that's another step up on the comms.
I think that would be quite an interesting one.
So do you think that endangers languages or helps them survive? Because you could argue it's more the latter, right? We could carry on talking whatever dialect of barely spoken language.
Would you even know, though? You come to a point where you're like, what am I thinking in?
Oh, what do I dream in?
Or like, bilingual people.
Yeah.
Or trilingual people. Yeah. What language are you thinking in?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not lucky enough to be either bi or trilingual.
Too lazy. Oh, I've got Pidgin English.
You did have some experience in a country that spoke Pidgin English.
It's only got a vocab of 4,000 words. So.
All right, so you're going...
I'm going languages.
Translations. Right, I'm going to go then a kind of combination now of data analytics and financial management sort of combined. I think the very clunky way that we're expected to analyse data, consume data at the moment, you've got to pivot tables, you've got to draw graphs. It's all very clunky. These are all constructs that we've had to invent because humans can't cope with massive amounts of data and draw connections. And like we said earlier, can't predict exponentially. So I think something's going to happen where you don't even have to think anymore about, do I need a pivot table for this? Or can I try and correlate that with that? And you don't even have to tell your AI companion, your co-pilot, here's a piece of data, what do you think? So combined with my earlier bit that it's just sort of all knowing, it's catching up with what you know and what you hear about, what you learn as you go along. It will just suggest stuff to you. So do you realise that every third month on the Tuesday, we get a higher electricity bill? And what? What's that all about then? And I think it's because someone's turning on the tumble dryer or whatever it may be. Or did you realise that every second year our margins take a tumble in the summer, and it's in line with when one of our competitors does some special offer or something? Things that you would just no way even think to ask the question of.
I've got an evolution of that for you.
Go on then.
And maybe it's not for next year, but I think imagine you could take all of that data and say, right, I want you to turn that into a movie for me so that I can understand it. So I consume my company's data through an AI created movie that gives me, so it takes the data and turns it into a story, but it turns it into a very
much more memorable,
compelling, memorable
easy
story.
To digest. And humans are storytellers.
That pulls out the key points.
Yeah.
So data is storytelling. Storytelling with data, or data is storytelling.
Yeah.
You heard it here first.
Especially for complex subjects, or even just new stuff.
Yeah.
Or even just learning. Where we mentioned earlier about teaching, didn't we? Where's that going if you can learn new stuff? I'm learning so much at the moment by getting GPT to do it for me, and then I get it to explain what it's done.
What about induction into a company?
Yeah.
Where you said, okay, here's all the different sources from our policies to our data to our customers to our culture.
Yeah.
Turn that into a movie for me or a story.
Well, okay, and then combine that then with some knowledge about the individual that's starting, what previous companies have they worked for, what's their lived experience, what are their expectations, what's their worldview, and then make a tailored version for them.
Yeah.
That rather than just a story about a company that everybody sits down and watches, everyone gets their own one.
Yeah.
Which says, you may have previously experienced this. Well, it doesn't happen here.
Yeah.
Ooh, that.
That could be an interesting one.
Okay, well, I'm on a journey here. I've gone from my comms and my meetings. I've gone through data analysis and financial management. I think the next thing is something to do with universally accessible automation. Right, so instead of you thinking, I wish I knew how to do that, or some clever clogs in IT does know how to do that, but I don't, you just be able to say to your computer, probably through voice commands, Siri style, just say, every time I get an email from such and such, it's an invoice from a supplier. Could you just send the invoice to the accounts department and file it in the folder called invoices? And rather than having to go and get in the rules section of Outlook and work out how to do this and write a bit of code for that and all that, you just natural language say to do it. And the difference will be that the equivalent of like Zapier and those sort of things now, they just have access to all the things you have access to, and they can act as well as receive.
Yeah.
So instead of your co-pilot just telling you stuff, you can tell it to do stuff. Now, I think that starts to get a bit scary because as soon as you give AI agency, so I don't know where the decision point is, are they able to make decisions or not? But as soon as it's got the ability to do stuff rather than just give you some text or voice output, then where does it go?
Yeah, does it become conscious?
Yeah, where's conscience?
When is it? Yeah.
So that's my third one. Really easily, universally acceptable. When this happens, do that. Accept when that. And if this has happened, then do that. And you just start to delegate parts of your job. How many people have to every Monday produce the report for this and send that off to there and approve these expenses and all that stuff? You could just start building all these rules that take away loads of the routine part of your work.
Like agents, have your own, become more ubiquitous, the use of agents.
Yeah. It's like having a team of people around you all the time that you don't have to pay.
Yeah.
And they just do all the stuff that you could give them simple rules to do. Every time I get sent something for review, run it through the grammar checker in British English and read it first before you get it sent to me or whatever. I don't know. There'll be so many different examples already that people who are clever with coding can do, but I think it's just going to become so much more ubiquitous, so much more accessible.
Okay, so I'll go with, and I think this is already happening to some extent and has happened in the past, but I think we'll see a rise in personalised medicine or performance-enhancing drugs for the workplace in order to give you...
Legitimately, you mean legally?
Legally, yeah, they're already there. So there's been a long history of this. People may know JFK and a certain Adolf Hitler experimented with amphetamines in the workplace.
To give them an edge, or
to keep them an edge, keep them awake. There was a huge amount that was done in Second World War around that for soldiers and things, performance enhancing. But also there's a lot done. There's a lot of people now. There's a whole phenomenon around microdosing with LSD to give people a creative edge in the workplace. Big in Silicon Valley. There's people who take ADHD medication, Ritalin, things like that, which if you don't have ADHD gives you incredible concentration abilities, like 12 hours of concentration, apparently.
Wow.
So I'm led to believe by people who've done it.
Have you spoken to people who've first-hand experience?
GPs who've done it,
Really?
who said we used to use it for studying when we were studying for our medical exams.
Wow.
So, and it may surprise you to think. So apparently, some research said that 17% of University of Cambridge students said they'd used study drugs in a recent survey.
Didn't
Don't know
happen
if
in
you
my
know
day.
anyone. Well,
I missed out.
you missed out. That's where it all went wrong.
Yeah.
And apparently 1 in 12 UK adults have taken a smart drug to give themselves an intellectual edge, with 44% saying they first tried them in the workplace. Now that was in 2018, that study.
Right.
So we're 6 years on from that.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I do know somebody who overdid the old microdosing and ended up sending an email to every single person who had ever sent them an email, because they got the rules wrong in their Outlook account.
Oh my goodness.
And sent an email to like about 15,000 people or something from their Outlook. But
You've got to be
so
careful.
it can go,
Well, I think that's
but
probably
but I
be
think
careful on a number of
I
fronts.
think that is going to start to
So what do you call this? Microdosing?
microdosing, smart drugs, which are kind of around almost like personalised. But I think you'll start to see more personalised medicine come through. Just
But
in
it's
general,
to do with performance enhancing rather than medical disease prevention.
to give you competitive edge in the workplace.
Wow.
And I think maybe as
Do you think this is what's going to happen then, as AI starts nibbling away at work?
Yeah.
You've got a slightly more darker view of how that's going to play out than me. haven't you think that actually that's going to lead to high levels of unemployment
Yeah.
and inactivity?
Because I know the argument is always there to say new things replace, and for sure there probably will be. But I think even if we look back, we used to run Vantage, which was our kind of speaker event networking thing we did years ago. We had a couple of futurists come, and one of the things they say, there's always going to be new jobs that come, and sure enough, in the past that has been true, and no doubt there will be other new things that come, prompt engineers and all that type of thing.
Drone pilots, AI ethics.
But even the thing like a prompt engineer being a job, which only a year ago was like, well, you can earn 6 figures being a prompt engineer. Well,
Can't
now
anymore, no.
it's
short-lived
gone.
one, that one.
Very short-lived. And there was things like, well, you could be a fashion designer for your online avatar. Well, why would you need someone to design it when I can just have an AI make it all for me? So I think the pace of change now is different from when we came in from the fields to the cities and all of that.
Yeah.
The pace now is so fast that there almost isn't time to reskill and learn something.
So you think you're acknowledging that it has happened up to now, clearly, because it has, and it's just an ability of humans to create new areas of endeavour, knowledge working or physical endeavour to replace it. But you reckon there's a limit to how fast we can do that, and that AI will strip out labour faster than we can think of new things to do. There's only a certain number of nail bars or pet psychologists or drone pilots that you need.
And then we end up in a kind of Orwellian kind of situation where, so you've got, no, actually, I take that back. I don't think we'd go down the Orwellian route directly. We'll be more of a Brave New World, Aldous Huxley, where pleasure will become the opiate, as it were.
Yeah.
So things like VR, universal basic income. Where
does the wealth generation come from then? Just happens by AI. So it's whoever owns the AI agents.
Well, I think I don't know if it's wealth generation, it's wealth concentration, isn't it?
Well, we're getting that anyway.
It's going to bring out the...
We're going to get a bit political now, aren't we?
Political,
okay, so you're going for microdosing.
so I'm going to start
and
microdosing.
Personalised medicine.
Yeah. Well, I think personalised medicine is coming down the tracks anyway, isn't it? That's already there with 23andMe and all that kind of stuff.
That's scary enough, yeah.
But I think it will start to, as work becomes more competitive in a sense because of AI, we'll see more people looking to get that edge.
Right. I'm going to come up with one more. Right. And then I've stuck my neck out enough for this time next year. So December 25, we'll be playing this episode again and said, you either got completely carried away there or don't be daft, that happened by Easter. My last one is to do with time management. And I think there's this personal agent thing. I talked before about how it helps communication, but that's when you're in that setting. When you're doing personal work, we are all bombarded with ridiculous numbers of inputs. We've got all these different social media channels. We've got email coming at us all the time. Some of us even still get phone calls, believe it or not. We've got Zoom meetings. We've got our calendar demanding our attention. We've got to-do lists. And if, maybe for some of the people in our audience who are more from a sales or business growth environment, they also have a never-ending list of things to do to prospect for people they've never met before, re-engage with someone they last spoke to X months ago and they're trying to reconnect again, chase up something that someone said, connect someone someone else. There's just so many things to do. We could all work 100 hours a day and still not get the job done. So I think something's going to happen around the way that the technology feeds into not just the facts available to it, the to-do lists and the calendar and your CRM telling you that this, that, the other, but it can tap into your own mood. What would you like to do now? Not this is the most important thing to do now, but are you an early bird or a night lark? A night owl. When is it that you do your best deep work? When is it that you do your best admin work? And it starts, and you don't have to tell it. It will just learn. It will realise that in the past, when it's given you the task to do your expenses, not that that'll ever even be a thing anymore because it'll happen automatically. But when you've got to do something a bit less interesting, it'll realise that you do that quicker at certain times of the day than others.
But if you could combine that with wearables, couldn't you? So I was looking at that as well in terms of high-tech fabrics and smart fabrics. Yeah. So imagine
to sense mood. And
so imagine you said,
weakness.
okay, you've sensed your, or maybe it's not even wear. Maybe it's like you've got an implant that says what your blood's doing. Or whatever.
That's already a thing, right? You can get
and it could feed back and say, oh, it looks like you've got a bit of a cortisol spike at the moment. So maybe don't do that complicated thing you were thinking of doing.
Yeah, you might
do this one. Do these quite quick, quick win ones or whatever.
Yeah. You need a lift or just go and have a break. Go and have a break and then come back and do this. Take your microdosing.
That could, yeah.
Oh gosh, yeah, that's an interesting adjunct to that. And so I think a combination then of more inputs from you, your wearables, your tech clothing and so on, to know a bit more about what you're in the frame of mind for. How much caffeine have you had today and have you eaten enough and stuff? Are you awake? Combined with a better way of somehow consolidating this seemingly insurmountable pile of things that need doing, which really does overawe people. I think there's a lot of demand for this. If you could say that is the best way I could spend my work day because AI says so, and if you trust it, then rather than coming in and just think, well, the easiest thing for me to do is to open up Outlook and start wading through emails. Yeah. Well, actually, you're not getting anything done that you've planned there. You're being very reactive and you never get the important stuff done. But if you just do the important stuff, you miss the urgent stuff. So I think the world is crying out for a much better solution to managing information overload, priority, to-do list, all that stuff.
Can I throw one other final prediction in?
It's your turn. Yeah, you have one.
I'm going to throw in, and this may be controversial, I think we will see in 2025, with all of this technology and all these advancements and all this, and I'm not hating on the technology, but I think we're going to see a return to more simple pastimes.
Board games.
I think we're going to see book sales are up, physical copies of book sales are up. I think things like retreats, tech-free retreats will be a thing.
Do you think we'll have mobile signal-free zones?
Possibly.
Wouldn't be a bad thing.
And how that plays out in the workplace, I don't know. Maybe it'll come into some more kind of progressive HR policies around downtime.
Well, the right to turn off.
Right to turn off. Yeah. Anyway.
Do you know there's no actually a technical solution for that at the moment? I spoke to our IT company. Even though Siemens can, because they've got their own mail service, they can turn it off. Because we're using 365 in the cloud, you can't turn it off. Yeah. You can not turn your laptop on.
But so I think maybe people will start to realise that maybe this is all getting a bit much. As convenient as this all is, what is the end point? Yeah. But also what is it doing to the kind of...
Well, there's good parallels of that, isn't there? Even though we've all got cars, some of us still like going for a cycle or a run or a walk. Yeah. You don't have to always be at the forefront of doing everything as efficiently. And humans probably don't enjoy going at that speed all the time.
So like journaling. Journaling will be big. Yeah, I've got a feeling.
Yeah, you got to think journaling's coming in.
I think people might think...
All right, well, look, let's just, if you can remember, let's just summarise what we just said then. What were your tips?
Oh my goodness. Right.
So I think I started with communication. So I've got the assistant on my shoulder reminding me of everything I need to know in the middle of a communication. I've got data analysis and financial management, trying to just throw all that data at all time, and I think financial reporting will be totally unrecognisable. I've got workflow automation that's ubiquitously available. I think you'll just better say, do this, and it happens, given these rules. And I've got something to do with priorities and to-do management and to-do lists and all the email overload and message overload. It'll help us with all that. I wish. That's my whatever that is, 4 or 5. What did you go for?
What did I go for? Digital twin.
Digital twin.
I expanded on your one with my
languages.
The drugs.
Microdosing and
Everyone's taking
personalisation
drugs. Some kind of VR dystopia. Smart clothing.
Smart clothing to help the idea of prioritising and understanding mood and capacity.
And then the antithesis to all that is the...
That's a great one to end on.
Is the return to the human spirit.
Digital detox.
And, so I'm big on journaling. I like journaling. I spent half an hour staring at a tree the other day.
That's meditation, not journaling.
Yeah, but it was kind of like, it was just nice. My phone was miles away from me and all that, and it was it was good. So if anyone else wants to do that, in the words
find your own tree.
In the words of Arnie, come with me if you want to live.
You got an Arnie thing on today.
I got it.
Right, good. Well, we are definitely hostages to fortune now, are we not?
Wow.
We have gone on record and published to the YouTube world, the Spotify world, Apple world, everybody else, and we've said what we think is going to happen by December 25. Wonder how many out of 10 we'll get. Let's see. Okay, thanks, Rich.
Cool.
That could be an annual event, that, couldn't it? Humiliate ourselves with more ridiculous guesses of what will be a year away.
Like watching Tomorrow's World from back in the 70s.
I remember seeing those, yeah. We're going to have video phones.
Flying cars.
There's all the stuff that has come about.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
a crazy thing. Microphones. Right, thanks again for watching another episode of the SME Growth Podcast from Wellmeadow, your growth partner. If you can, then please pass on the word about what we're doing and all of these wonderful episodes that we recorded. That was 98, believe it or not. So you nearly got a full set of 100 to browse through at your leisure and find something interesting to watch. Broken up into nice bite-sized chunks on YouTube for you. Thanks a lot again, and good luck with your business.